A powerful sheriff mired in allegations of corruption loses a contentious fight to hold on to his position. A brave police captain vowing to clean up the department wins that high-profile election, but he would never take the office.
Exposing corruption during an election campaign can get you killed.
25 years ago, a hit on Derwin Brown days before he was to be sworn in as DeKalb County's new sheriff.
This was a planned assassination.
Tonight, we're bringing you never-before-heard stories from behind the scenes, the tips that exposed deep corruption.
He said, I've got the biggest story that's ever been told, but no one has the guts to tell it.
The actual hit list that went far beyond the sheriff-elect.
He wanted Derwin killed, he wanted me killed, and he wanted Dale Cardwell.
And I prayed about it. Please, please protect my family.
And the lasting impact of the shocking case on investigators, the community, and families.
First of all, the most powerful source in this world is love. And he was love.
This is The Hit, the assassination of Derwin Brown. It was a stunning case in Metro Atlanta that captured national headlines. Good evening, I'm Karyn Greer. Days before Christmas, a gunman targeted DeKalb County Sheriff-elect Derwin Brown as he arrived home with roses for his wife. Now, 25 years later, we go in depth with those closest to the case to reveal the clues that blew the investigation wide open, deals that had to be made with the killers, and the list of people they wanted dead.
A murder, an assassination, an ambush, as the police have referred to this, rarely gets any bigger or more shocking than this.
Here, and now there's a new sheriff in town.
We were stunned when Brown was gunned down.
The house with the blue Christmas lights on it, that we understand was Sheriff-elect Derwin Brown's house, the house in front of which he was gunned down.
It was the summer of 2000 and a heated election season in DeKalb County. A county that had its first black sheriff, Sidney Dorsey.
Very colorful figure, sort of a cowboy in many ways, kind of unrestrained.
Sid Dorsey was untouchable. The sheriff was extremely powerful and with such a significant budget.
Dorsey was locked in a tight runoff race for re-election. His challenger, Derwin Brown, a 22-year veteran of the DeKalb County Police Department.
He wanted to bring honesty to government. He was a charismatic figure in and of his own right.
For me, my daddy was Superman. He was literally invincible.
Brown, a father of 5, campaigned on a promise to clean up corruption, and there was plenty of it.
John, Monica, these accusations surfaced with this federal lawsuit.
As Election Day neared, Dale Cardwell, a Channel 2 Action News reporter at the time, started receiving tips about Dorsey's sketchy business dealings. The first tip came during a chance encounter.
My photographer, Jim Bridges, and I went to Dairy Queen to get a soft serve. I'm standing there in line, and this guy comes and pokes me on the shoulder. I turn around, and he says, "You're Dale Cardwell with Channel 2." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I've got the biggest story that's ever been told, but no one has the guts to tell it." And I said, "Well, try me." And he says, "Here's my card, call me." So I called the guy, and he said, "Sheriff Dorsey is using on-duty deputies to man his private security jobs all over Metro Atlanta."
Can I ask you a question?
Cardwell then went undercover and caught DeKalb County Detention Officer Sergeant Joe Murray working private security at a bank while being paid by taxpayers.
Are you on the clock? Are you on the county clock right now?
That's not your business.
So what does Sheriff Dorsey have to say about this? No comment. In fact, he's refused every request for an interview. But after we told him what our story was about, he sent us this revised version of Sergeant Murray's hours that day. A new form which now shows Murray was on leave without pay the whole afternoon we were watching him at the bank. So which of these pay sheets should the public believe?
Prior to the Dale Cardwell story breaking, myself and an investigator in J. Tom Morgan's office went and interviewed Sheriff Dorsey. You know, he asked me, was I recording him? And I said no, but I was recording him. And I told him about the story that was getting ready to break.
My phone started ringing off the hook with sources inside the sheriff's department, inside county government saying, oh, you think that's bad? How about this?
Cardwell also received these exclusive photographs showing jail inmates fixing homes that belonged to his wife's constituents.
I'm Dale Cardwell.
And I'm Patrick Cuffey.
Can we talk to you about your record?
And he exposed how one of Dorsey's deputies, Patrick Cuffey, was on the force despite a domestic violence conviction, and that Cuffey had received a shocking amount of overtime.
With the exception of just 2 days, Cuffey's official timesheets claim he's worked 7 days a week, including double shifts every weekend, for every single week this year.
We determined it's not humanly possible for him to have worked that many hours and claim for, but nobody questioned him.
On paper, he should have been making about $45,000 a year, but he had over $60,000 in overtime.
The corruption didn't end there.
Channel 2's Dale Cardwell is with us with more on his exclusive story.
A source inside the sheriff's department tipped off Cardwell to the so-called badge file. Dorsey had given out badges to more than 200 people who did not even work for the department. And he faced a federal lawsuit after one of his detention officers claimed she had an affair with Sheriff Dorsey and that he sexually harassed her.
Did you sleep with the sheriff at his mother's house?
Yes, sir, I did.
Does his mother know that?
Yes.
As the allegations mounted, Dorsey still refused to talk on camera with Channel 2, but the sheriff could not escape growing pressure and criticism.
Sheriff Dorsey, I, Derwin Brown, Captain, Assistant Precinct Commander of the DeKalb Public Safety Department, is hereby calling upon you to step down.
At one point, a former political pollster changed his endorsement from Dorsey to Brown.
We have witnessed some disturbing information on the news.
And there was finger pointing from the sheriff's camp, too.
Don't let Channel 2, don't let that man right there deter you from going back to the polls tomorrow. Because that's what this is all designed for.
As the candidates headed to the polls, they made a final appeal to voters.
I want to ask the public to come out and vote today. It's extremely important that we turn out.
I think that some people have simply gone across the line.
On Election Day in August of 2000, Derwin Brown beat Sid Dorsey by a 2-to-1 margin. It was a blistering defeat, and Dorsey promised action against those he blamed for his loss.
Certainly, these kinds of attacks should not go unnoticed. And
Dorsey also blasted the media.
No, I think it was very unfair and very slanted and very biased reporting.
I hope that he takes this in stride, and as I've always been taught through my days in sports, learn how to be a good loser.
Dale Cardwell is why Sidney Dorsey lost the election.
We all said there was no chance he was going to win this election.
Right. I met Derwin Brown one time. Much like people are shocked that I never talked to Sid Dorsey. I met Derwin Brown one time. And it was after the election, and it's when he held a news conference to say that I am terminating 36 people that work in the sheriff's department. And his advisors told him, don't do it, Derwin, don't do it. Don't telegraph that you're letting those people go. And he said, no, it's the right thing to do. They have families and they need to make arrangements to make a living.
A month after that news conference, as Derwin Brown returned home from a dinner celebration, a gunman ambushed him in his driveway as he carried flowers to give his wife for her birthday.
I opened the door and I called Derwin. And I just said, Derwin. Then I opened it. And I stepped out.
And I just remember repeating over and over and over, I want my daddy. I want my daddy.
There were 16 shots fired that night. 12 of them hit Derwin.
This was brutal.
This was a planned assassination.
Immediately, there was theorizing that maybe Sid Dorsey had something to do with the murder of Derwin Brown. But he had an alibi.
As investigators worked in the rain outside Brown's home, decorated for Christmas, concern quickly shifted to others possibly in danger.
You
were worried for the safety of some other people that night as well. What happened? There were some calls made.
We were concerned first about the safety of WSB reporter Dale Cardwell.
Turns out there were others on a hit list. But who was behind the plot? Tonight, there's new information about the trail that almost went cold.
She took a napkin and she scribbled on the napkin, that was the beginning of the end.
And the deals that prosecutors would have to make to get justice for the hit, the assassination of Derwin Brown. With the sheriff-elect gunned down 3 days before he was set to take his oath of office, detectives scrambled to unravel the mystery. The killers left behind little evidence, and police feared others may be dead as well.
There were like a half dozen police officers standing in my front yard. GBI, State Patrol, and DeKalb police, and rain was dripping off the rims of their hats. And like, Mr. Cardwell, the sheriff-elect of DeKalb County, Derwin Brown, was murdered in his driveway within the hour. He's dead. We expected to find you dead as well.
At that point, were you finally realizing the dangers?
Yes, that's when it really hit me, Karyn, of what I'd done to my family, of the danger that I'd put them in. And I prayed about it. And I said, God, if you have me to do this, and this is your will for my life, please, please protect my family.
As the sun came up hours after the assassination, investigators got a better look at the scene at Derwin Brown's home in DeKalb County.
We don't know exactly what they have been looking for over there.
I think what I remember most, I can see them still in my mind's eye, were the Christmas lights. Juxtaposed against this scene of horror.
Brown's family was living that horror. At the hospital, his wife Phyllis knew he was gone.
I never wanted him to have to utter those words. And as soon as he said Phyllis, I just put my hand up. I never looked at him. And I said, I know.
Derwin's wife, Phyllis, was sobbing in the corner, and Thomas and Chief Moody, who was the chief of police at the time, directed me to a room, and Derwin was lying there covered with a sheet. And I remember I pulled the sheet back and saw how his jaw had been shattered.
The well-respected husband and father was shot a dozen times here in his driveway, just steps from his front door. The cold-blooded assassination rocked this community, and immediately there was speculation that Sidney Dorsey could be involved.
I automatically thought that Sheriff Dorsey had something to do with it.
For the record, where our viewers can look into your eyes.
A pivotal moment in the investigation when Dorsey agreed to sit down with Channel 2 Action News reporter Mark Winnie.
I threw Sidney Dorsey sort of a verbal life preserver during the interview. A question that gave him something to hold on to that might also advance our interests in getting at the truth. And I asked him basically whether he was concerned a misguided supporter may have been involved in the Derwin Brown murder.
Maybe involved in the Brown slaying.
Yes, I am. I'm concerned. You always have to be concerned about the unknown, and what we're dealing with is a mystery murder. And when it's a mystery murder, certainly everyone is a suspect. So certainly the worst case scenario would be that the perpetrator happens to be one of our employees.
Do you want to answer whether you had anything at all to do with the slaying of Derwin Brown?
Yes, I do.
And your answer?
I did not. Nothing whatsoever.
Knock, knock, knocking on it door.
With Brown now buried, his family was desperate for answers. Several months after the assassination, a crime seemingly unrelated to Derwin Brown's murder would help break the case wide open.
We are in front of Patrick Cuffey's house. That is it right there behind us, and there is still plenty of evidence of the gun battle that happened here right in his front yard.
Then I got a tip, and they said, Dale, there was a break-in at this lady's apartment yesterday, and we think it has something to do with the shootout at Cuffey's house, and it also may have something to do with the murder of Derwin Brown.
Cardwell met with the woman. She was too afraid to talk, but she provided a key piece of information on a napkin.
She took a napkin and she scribbled on the napkin, "Junior shot kid." It was a dope deal.
That tip led police to charge Cuffey with murder for the shootout.
That was the beginning of the end. Patrick Cuffey sat in a jail cell and stewed, and he got angrier and angrier that Sid Dorsey was not sticking up for him, and he decided that he was going to tell the truth.
With investigators getting a clearer picture of the hit on Derwin Brown, Cardwell continued to fear for his safety.
And this is where I was getting ready to do the live shot.
On this night, someone shot at Cardwell as he reported on the case, the bullet barely missing his head.
Here's the bullet here.
And then a breakthrough.
Mr. Cuffey had information relating to the assassination of Derwin Brown.
Cuffey, who considered Dorsey a father figure, decided to tell all. Prosecutors arranged to meet him at a secret location.
We went back to DeKalb County Jail and secured warrants for Sidney Dorsey, David Ramsey, and Melvin Walker.
Who was the shooter?
The shooter was Melvin Walker. Paul Skyers was a getaway driver, and Cuffey and Ramsey were the backup shooters.
All of them either worked as deputies for the sheriff's department or for Dorsey's private security company. Prosecutors now knew the mastermind of the murder was ousted Sheriff Sidney Dorsey.
He does all of this planning and setup through Patrick Cuffey. So he calls Patrick Cuffey over to his house one day, and he writes on a sheet of paper, "I want you to kill Derwin Brown." And then he takes that paper and puts it in his mouth, chews it up, and swallows it.
At trial, Dorsey's own words would come back to haunt him. And Cuffey wanted immunity, but would jurors believe his story?
The jury, I can't even attempt to understand what they thought or what they heard.
And would anyone be held accountable for Brown's assassination? Police now had 5 suspects in the assassination of Sheriff-elect Derwin Brown, Sidney Dorsey, and 4 men who once relied on Dorsey for their livelihoods. The pieces were finally coming together for prosecutors, but for Brown's family, justice would not come quickly.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Melvin D. Walker, not guilty of murder.
The first jury verdict came back with acquittals. It was devastating.
In 2002, jurors acquitted triggerman Melvin Walker and David Ramsey, the backup shooter who stood nearby with a loaded gun.
How do you know David Ramsey, sir?
I grew up with David Ramsey.
During the trial, the jury dismissed much of what key witness Patrick Cuffey had to say. The former deputy and associate, Paul Skyers, received immunity for providing details about the deadly ambush of Sheriff-elect Derwin Brown. The verdict hit hard for many.
The jury, I can't even attempt to understand what they thought or what they heard.
And while the pair walked free on state charges, they would not evade justice. A federal jury found Walker and Ramsey guilty of violating Brown's civil rights and sentenced them to life. Several months later, Cuffey would return to the witness stand, coming face to face with his former boss.
Who shot and killed Derwin Brown?
Melvin Walker.
At whose request was Derwin Brown killed for?
At the request of Sidney Dorsey.
The man who sits right here?
Yes, sir.
Cuffey said they carried out the hit to keep or earn jobs at the DeKalb County Jail. He also testified the former sheriff had others on his hit list.
He wanted Derwin killed, He wanted me killed, and he wanted Dale Cardwell killed, in that order, pretty quickly.
The first time I heard my name quoted as a target on a hit list was when Patrick Cuffey was on the stand, and he said my name.
Perhaps the most damaging testimony came when the jury heard a wiretap worn by GBI agent Fred Mays. Before Brown's murder, Mays secretly recorded Dorsey talking about allegations that he ran a corrupt office.
He said, I know who's behind this, and I know it's that Derwin Brown, and he used some profanity towards Derwin Brown.
The jury deliberated for 3 days on murder, corruption, and other charges.
We, the jury, find the defendant as to count 1 guilty.
Phyllis Brown cried and trembled. She spoke to us moments after the verdict.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What are your thoughts on Sidney Dorsey?
I really have none. I have none. I think that justice is served.
It took them just a matter of minutes to find Mr. Dorsey guilty of RICO and corruption. They were hung up 10-2 on the murder. The jury foreman, he asked that they all close their eyes and hold hands and pray and to make the right decision, and then they voted silently, anonymously again, and it was 12-0 for conviction.
Derwin Brown's children say they still have questions.
Why? Nothing in his life would ever speak to say that he deserved something like that. I just couldn't fathom it.
I hope you die. I hope you burn in hell.
"25 years after Derwin Brown's assassination, Melvin Walker, the triggerman, and David Ramsey, the backup shooter, are still serving life sentences. Patrick Cuffey received immunity and called Dale Cardwell years after the murder to apologize for having, as Cuffey called it, hatred in his heart. And Sidney Dorsey, the mastermind, here now in his mid-80s, is serving out his time in prison. Your words for former Sheriff Dorsey today.
I hope he is miserable. I hope he sees my father's image every time he closes his eyes. I hope that his family is suffering.
I hope you die. I hope you burn in hell. I hope you suffer. You suffer for the rest of your life until your last breath.
25 years later, the pain is still fresh. Derwin Brown's children have missed their father's love and holiday celebrations with him. Christmas will never be the same.
Christmas lights and decorations on the outside of the house is something I can't do because it just reminds me and it takes me right back there to that driveway, to that scene.
Family says they still have questions.
I want to know the truth. How did they really think that they were going to assassinate the sheriff and then have time to go down a whole list of people and get away with it?
Among their questions, why the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office was not held responsible for the killer's actions.
The county didn't reach out and help in any way. It seemed like to us that nobody seemed to even care.
What do you want people to know about your father's legacy?
The most powerful source in this world is love. And he was love. When it came to his family, when it came to his community, he was love in every which way. His integrity. And I want people to remember that his fight for DeKalb was not him just becoming the sheriff. He was fighting for DeKalb County way before that.
Others closest to the case 25 years ago are also taking time to reflect.
I still cannot believe a person would have another person murdered because they beat him in an election. I was shocked then, and I'm, still shocked to this day.
It's important to note Derwin Brown's efforts to clean up corruption were not in vain. They worked. He should not have had to sacrifice his life for that to happen.
And he paid the ultimate price. So it's something I think we should all remember. And as we go down this path and hope that this is never repeated and that his lessons will continue to pay benefits in terms of ethical government, efficient government, and solid, honest law enforcement.
The First Amendment investigative journalism is what keeps this country going, because without that, we would have no way to expose corruption. And Dell Cardwell and WSB is a perfect example about how important that is.
Dale, you brought this to the attention of everyone. You held the powerful accountable. You changed the face of DeKalb.
It's our job. I did my job, but there were tremendously sad circumstances. And
you do it all again?
I wish I could do it differently. I wish that there would have been a way to expose the corruption without it leading to the murder of Derwin Brown.